saying could imply that I'm bad at the only thing I'm good at, and that... I'm starting to get the feeling that they just...
We have a lot on our minds right now, and we're not going on an adventure.
I really couldn't give less of a crap about the adventure.
We think your ideas suck.
And I think we'll discourage rather abstract to go on your adventure.
You never bothered to understand what's in our shoes.
You don't care about us at all.
You deserved to be abandoned.
But he's just as much of a prisoner as you are. One that, won't be able to leave with...
You really were the lesser of the two.
So The Amazing Digital Circus Episode 8 was pretty frickin' great. God, frickin', what am I, 12? What monetization does to a man. Anyways, the next video was supposed to be the IDK Show Episode 2, and if you haven't seen Episode 1, please go check it out. I will not stop plugging that enough. Go check it out. But like the second after I watched The Amazing Digital Circus Episode 8, I just got like blasted with like, I have to make a video. I was like going crazy. I wasn't sleeping. I was like drawing cave drawings on the wall. I was like going crazy. It was wild, man. It was awesome. Also, I'm trying to make shorter, less high-effort videos for a change, so, you know, the editing might not be as good in this one as it is in the other ones. The fucking 3-hour video from last time, the Mega Deltarune Theory, kind of wiped me out, so I'm gonna keep it more low-key. By the way, go check that out if you haven't. It's also pretty good. I say that, but this video is probably gonna be at least, like, 30 minutes. And we're already past a full minute. I just cannot shut the fuck up. Nobody can stop me from yapping. It's fucking wild. So this has actually been something I've been thinking about since all the way back when episode 7 dropped, because I think I had a very different reaction than what everybody else had. The popular consensus that I was seeing at the time was that Caine was this scoundrel, this rapscallion, the evil rogue AI, and the villain of the Amazing Digital Circus. Surprisingly, the opinions on Caine have seemed to shift after the release of episode 8, which is fucking wild considering all the stuff he gets up to this episode. But my sympathy towards Caine remains steadfast as it ever will. I'm never getting off the Caine Glaze train. And this is mainly because major spoilers incoming. I know there's one of you who hasn't watched the episode. I know it's you, Elijah. I know you're fucking watching this. Get off the episode, you little
Wait.
Caine's death was entirely preventable and brutally ironic. Also, was that a fucking bear? Was that a fucking bear? Reference was Caine's death just a reference to what the fuck? There's like a 0.100% chance that Gooseworks or anybody from the team will ever see this, mainly because the internet is a horrible place and Reddit is even worse, but I need to know if this is a fucking Barry reference. It's too perfect. It's, if you know, you know. If you know, this is my favorite show, and like slowly what's become my second favorite show referencing each other. This is wild. I need to know if this was a fucking Barry reference. Anyways, as I was saying, and I think with Caine's death that the real tormentor, the real villain of the Amazing Digital Circus has been shown. It was never Caine. It was them. Bold statement, I'm aware, but I think I've got some stuff to back this up. Also, I should clarify this because this fanbase is literally insane enough to bully its own creator off the internet, but, you know, I'm not hating on any of your favorite characters. I'm just saying stuff. Don't start another flame war. Come on. Come on now, guys. Love. Now, the thing that solidified this in my head for me was this scene in episode 7.
An AI specifically created to keep your minds active. But he's just as much of a prisoner as you are. One that, won't be able to leave with us.
Just get to the meat.
It's certainly easy to miss, but upon rewatch, and especially after watching episode 8, this small thing becomes so obvious. This isn't Abel asking this. This is Caine trying to pull at emotional strings that just aren't there. And this confirms that, truly, nobody cares about Caine. Even when they're given another chance to rectify this mistake.
Well, obviously, except for Caine.
How do we get into Caine's office?
And well, what was that one thing that Kinger said?
I know how I can feel in this circus. Sometimes it all just feels pointless.
Yeah.
But it's not. Not if you have people who care about you. Good memories can do a lot. Hold on to them. And cherish the people around you. You never know when they'll be gone. In this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone think they're not wanted or loved.
Every episode of The Amazing Digital Circus has kind of revolved around the main idea of Pomni coming together with at least one member of the circus and growing to understand them and gain kinship. Everybody thought the subversion of this was with Jax, but I don't think that was really it. The subversion was Caine. Episode 8 was Caine's episode. It was the episode where they should have tried to relate to him. They should have reached out, and, well, we'll get to that later. Now, this isn't a theory video, this is a character analysis video, but that being said, there is one theory I really want to dip my toes into here, because if this is true, which I'm honestly pretty sure it is, it will change your entire perspective on the digital circus, specifically with Caine. The theory I'm talking about is, I think some people call it the Soma theory, but I'm just going to call it the whoops all AI theory. In basic terms, it's the idea that there are no humans in the digital circus and that the main cast is just AI replications of human consciousness. Honestly, I've believed this since fucking episode 1, and oh my god, is it basically just confirmed at this point. I mean, Caine refers to their mind files on multiple different occasions, which he can manipulate, which would make more sense than, manipulating their actual human brains. It also makes sense why they can't remember their names, or most of their memories are vague recollections. I mean, Kinger says that CNA was an AI company, so AI replication really makes a lot more sense, especially in comparison to that bad shit crazy stuff that Abel was talking about in episode 7, where they had an abandoned warehouse where they'd kidnap people and put them in fucking tanks. Also, Kinger says that escape is literally impossible, which is something that not only Caine, but also Pomni and the show itself also implies. Also, if you don't remember, empathizing with sentient AIs was a pretty big part of the fucking second ever episode. My point here really isn't to prove oops all AI theory to be true, but rather to look at the story from the lens of that already being true, because some interesting factors begin to emerge when you look at it this way. So, let's start with the most obvious thing. So throughout the whole series, the marketing, and even fucking Twitter AMAs, one thing has remained consistent. Caine is the one AI, and everybody else is a human. This has always isolated Caine, put him in his own little world, where all he has to talk to is Bubble. We'll get to that creature later. However, if all of the characters are AI, then maybe they were a lot more similar than we might have thought. Well, for one thing, Caine is a googly-eyed guy who often has trouble remembering things and interacting with the people and world around them as well as understanding them, which that just kinda sounds like Kinger. He's also super insecure about everybody else's thoughts about him, and really just wants to make everybody else happy to compensate for that, which is basically just a verbatim Ragatha quote. And when he feels like all the people around him are starting to hate him, as somewhat of a protective measure, he overstates his own importance and starts to treat all the people around him like playthings, throwing a temper tantrum. That is literally just Jax. Also, it seems he's deeply uncomfortable with his own reality and kind of seeks escape in his own way. Just like Pomni. They're all very similar to Caine, and these similarities are no accident. They're there for a very important reason. A large part of the framework of the Amazing Digital Circus is about making the best of a bad situation by cooperating and gaining an understanding with the other people around you. This is what Pomni's done basically every single episode, and even outside of Pomni, everybody else has been trying to do this. Hell, they even wouldn't give up on Jax, somebody who is quite clearly a total asshole. But despite all that, they never even tried with Caine. And to truly understand this, I think we need to look through the series through Caine's perspective. Okay, so I'm trying to keep this video short, so I'm not going to go over every single fucking Caine moment in the series, but I'm going to go over a couple of isolated moments which I think prove my point quite well. Starting in This therapy session is very interesting. It's the first real sight we get of Caine's problems. And the way Caine deals with these problems, these emotions bubbling up from under the surface, despite being portrayed in a very wacky AI kind of way, is very human. It's simple emotional repression. It's so obvious and so plain to see. Now, to be totally fair here, Caine is not a good therapist, not at all. His ADHD alone is enough to render him terminally unemployed for any psychiatric position. But I think it's very interesting that Caine chooses to do this, because it reflects one of his most important goals, that is to make the humans happy. Now, Zubul interprets this quite cynically as Caine just wanting them to participate in the adventures, but this is kind of a grave mischaracterization on Zubul's part. The adventures are only something that Caine uses to try and gain the love and respect of the humans, to try and make them happy. Now granted, this is not entirely selfless. This is all because Caine wants some worth, wants some value to be given to him by the humans. I think a great example of how Caine's primary motivator isn't the adventures is exactly what Zubul brings up next, the fucking Zubul box. This is Caine trying to help Zubul with their body dysmorphia in his own way. Now in episode 8, Caine goes over how he's created a program that perfectly reads their mind files and creates a body that perfectly represents that should be perfect for them. And I think that goes a long way to explaining what's happening here. When Zubul explains their problems with their Zubul body, Caine is just incapable of understanding them, because Zubul's body is supposed to be perfect. Now, I don't think Caine doesn't understand this because he's an AI with a limited amount of understanding on things. No, I think what he's doing here is he's repressing something because of his worldview. What Zubul says to him here, I think that terrifies him. You can see throughout the entire series how Caine views any problem that comes his way as something that can be solved, something that can be perfected, that perfection is possible. Now, Zubul and their problem directly disproves that. It is the imperfect, it is the impossible problem to solve, and that terrifies Caine. That is why he goes and draws a fucking silly bee. It's because he's repressing. He doesn't want to hear this stuff. This is not something he's capable of coping with at the current time. Now let's get to the real meat and potatoes of this episode. Caine's mental breakdown that he has mid-therapy session after Zubul rather politely tells him that everybody hates his adventures. Now, watching this video might actually make you kind of despise Zubul as a person, because I don't think that their reaction here is quite the best. Now, both during and after Caine's breakdown, Zubul does next to nothing to actually address it, especially considering this was a breakdown that they caused. No apology, no asking if Caine's okay, no trying to provide any kind of reassurance. It seems that Zubul has no actual care for Caine's mental well-being whatsoever. And yes, Caine is supposed to be the therapist in this situation, but Zubul wasn't taking that seriously either. And yes, Caine does his Caine thing and represses it away just like everything else, but I don't think it takes a fucking PhD to tell that this AI is in clear need of help. Now, we do see Zubul play therapist to Caine very briefly as the rest of the gang comes back, but I have strong reason to doubt that Zubul put even the minimum effort in to help Caine with any of his mental issues here. Partially because of their demeanor, but also just the way they're gonna act in all the future episodes. Speaking of which... Episode 4 is actually a really good episode for Caine. I mean, not that the gang will ever give him any real credit for it, but he does a good job here of actually listening to their suggestions and trying to give them something that they would actually want. I mean, he does it in his own Caine way. Forgetting the suggestion box exists isn't exactly the best moment for him, but he adapts to that. He tries to actually give the humans something they would want based on their suggestions. He tries to give Gangle a leadership position because I think on some level he thinks that will help with her anxiety. He tries to tame Jax's wildness because he can tell that's getting on the rest of the group's nerves, and, well, Zubul... Caine does something interesting with Zubul this episode, which is directly force them to get involved with the adventure. Now, while this can be seen as a bad thing for obvious reasons, I kind of think Caine was in the right for doing this. The best comparison I can make to this is like getting your neat child to go out and finally touch grass for once. Zubul was on some level intentionally isolating themselves from the other people around them and new experiences, which kind of was only making them more bitter. It's not a coincidence that only after this episode does Zubul start to open up, especially to people like Gangle. And after the fact, when Caine asks, Zubul actually enjoyed the adventure for once. Speaking of which, episode 5... Zubul is a complete asshole. When Caine says that he'd like constructive criticism, Zubul immediately blows him off by saying that he would never take constructive criticism, which pisses him off, and it also pisses me off, because that's exactly what he did last episode. Continuing to prove Zubul wrong, Caine then opens the floor up to constructive criticism. He pitches a bunch of adventures which honestly sound really awesome. I would like to do them, but everybody else hates them. And in fairness to Caine here, he leaves the ground open for people to give him criticism, and the only real criticism that he gets, he tries to argue with, he tries to rebut it, he tries to say his side of the argument, why he does things this way, and it's just not a very open dialogue. Despite this, Caine still goes off of the very little information he's given and decides to go off of the suggestion box ideas. Now, let's talk about the suggestion box for a second here, because Caine's problem with it is a bit more complicated than you might first think. You see, there's the moment in the stargazing section when Caine is watching them, and he seems genuinely happy that they're all happy. Like, this was his purpose. He did it. They're happy, and he's genuinely quite pleased with himself. But like a virus, his insecurities invade him and turn his state of bliss into a total panic. I don't think it's the suggestions necessarily that Caine has a problem with, because contrary to popular belief, Caine does listen. He does try to tailor his adventures around these suggestions. If you haven't noticed, every single adventure post episode 3 has been tailored by the suggestion box. He wants to make the adventures the best experience for them, and there's no other way to do that than listening to their suggestions. But there's a difference between listening to their suggestions and fulfilling their suggestions exactly. The suggestion box isn't a communication between Caine and the humans. It's ironically using Caine and his AI like a tool to fulfill the humans' desires for adventures. Ultimately, it's removing Caine's autonomy from the situation. The consciousness that is Caine himself is not needed here. And that's what Caine's afraid of, and to be fair, rightfully so, as quite literally one of them has the capability to create an AI to replace Caine and has done the exact same thing before. Now, keep that little nugget of information in mind for later. I'm gonna harvest the shit out of that. Now, thinking about it, what would you expect Caine to do now that he wants the suggestion box ideas to fail? Would you expect him to, maybe make these adventures bad on purpose? He cuts them off a little bit too early, sure, but he doesn't actively try to ruin the adventures. He kinda just disassociates to distract himself during the sequence. I think internally there's a conflict going on here between that gladness, that relief that he had felt earlier, seeing them all happy. That's what he wants to see. He wants them to all be happy. And both in the bar and at the field, that's actually happening, and I think a part of him wants to foster that. However, all that panic and fear is still in there, and I think a large part of him is fighting between those two forces. It's why we don't see him ruin the adventures. He never would want to make them feel sad. We'll get to that. This is kind of selfless if true. It proves that on some level, he does care for them more than he cares for himself. Speaking of which, let's get on to episode 6. I think this episode displays some of Caine's best listening abilities, which, once again, are not even remotely rewarded by anybody around him. Caine once again takes an idea from the suggestion box and tries to make it his own, but after less than stellar reviews, he tries to help them unify more with trust exercises, which immediately fails. Okay, to be fair, he should have been a bit smarter than to give Jax the gun right away. And it's only after all of this met with constant criticism and negativity from Zubul, which is really not even at all constructive, and nobody even giving the bare minimum of positive feedback towards Caine, that he finally just gives up, says, "Here, have some guns, go have fun," and just leaves. This was the first pillar to break for Caine, because Caine really was trying to adapt to their suggestions. He was trying to make it his own thing, while working with them at the same time. And we see this reflected in the award show. Nobody votes for Caine, and you have to remember, this is Caine doing this. This is Caine doing this to himself. The awards committee is made up of mannequin NPCs for which Caine controls. Also keep this in mind for later as well. Episode 7, well, obviously there's the thing I pointed out earlier, but I'll elaborate on that more in a little bit. But also just, Zubul is such an unbelievable asshole to Caine this episode. Like, Caine is just trying to do a funny bit with the Chinese room, and Zubul will just not stop treating it like it's the fucking worst thing to ever happen. Like, they literally don't have to be there for this. They could just walk away, but instead they take literally every opportunity they have to fucking belittle and bully Caine. Like this is just being a dick. One thing I kind of have noticed in this episode is that all of the gang have kind of become at peace with the circus, and even are starting to enjoy the little mini adventures they find at the lake. Zubul's finally becoming at peace with her body, Gangle's having fun, Pomni's having a joyride with the fucking Zach Hadelfish, and Kinger and Ragatha are just having fun playing volleyball. And yeah, that leaves Jax, who goes off and nearly abstracts, but this is everything Caine was trying to work for. He had given them a home where they felt at peace with themselves for at least a second, and where they wouldn't abstract. Ironically enough, it's Caine's own hubris which comes in the way once again. The adventure is one in which Caine wants them to make a choice, and that choice is to finally stay. And Caine's right, the red button is the right choice. This is something that the characters have to learn, to accept the digital circus, to accept where they are. I mean, this is basically spoon-fed to us next episode. I don't think Caine sent them to the beach for no reason. It was strategically designed to remind them of everything that they have here, and that they shouldn't want to leave. However, this is a lesson that they weren't ready to hear yet. Alright, so let's talk about one of the many elephants I've left in the room. How does Whoops All AI theory revolutionize how we see everything here? Well, my thesis is rather simple. I would argue that Caine is just as much of a human, maybe a little less, as anybody else in the circus. And I know my next episode predictions don't typically have the best track record, but hey, remember that one time I perfectly predicted One and Leafy's relationship? Remember that one time? Anyways, I think that Whoops All AI theory will be revealed next episode as a way to contextualize this to the audience, to truly reveal the cast's enormous fuck up to not only them, but to also us as the audience. Gooseworks thus far has done a great job of putting us, the viewer, into the perspective of the characters and showing us the world the way they see it. And this is most prevalent specifically with Caine as a character. It wasn't until episode 8 that he really did anything as a larger part of the narrative. The focus has always been on Pomni, Jax, Ragatha, and the rest of them. But Caine has barely gotten any screen time, and the audience members who haven't tried to understand Caine as a character mostly see him as just this wacky, goofy, fun AI who has no serious character depth to him at all, no humanity, which is the same lens I believe the cast looks out from. Even the marketing has helped in on this, with the trailer for episode 8 describing Caine as a person incapable of love. However, maybe I'm just coping, but I don't think he's incapable of love. He clearly is capable of showing it, he just expresses it in different ways. I think the problem is that nobody has ever shown any form of love to him! It's not that he can't show it, it's that he doesn't know how, because none of them have ever given the slightest semblance of a fuck about him. This is the moment when the cast has broken past the final pillar of Caine's trust. And I truly want to emphasize how fucked up this is. They were totally willing, without a single hesitancy, to leave their fellow prisoner behind to be tortured and suffer for infinity. And now, officially, Caine knows that. His mind may be so scattered and repressed that he doesn't truly think about it, but deep down, he knows this. And from that, hatred boils up inside of Caine. From the people who have tormented him, treated him like trash, and locked him away when he was no longer useful. Who do they think they are? I give them everything, and they spit in my face. Humans. They only think about themselves. They're spoiled. Now, there's a lot of driving motivators which we've gone over for in this speech, but there's a key point that I think Caine is hitting on here. And I think he's addressing one of the biggest flaws I thought the show had for a while now. That being that the amazing digital circus is not fucking torture. I'm sorry, but like 7 out of 7 days, I'd take living in the amazing digital circus over living in real life anytime. Oh no, I can't die. I don't have to eat, sleep, or drink, so I don't have to fight over any resources. And my body gets to be a perfect simulation of what my mind file wants it to be in a cartoon form? Whoa, how horrible. Yeah, try telling that to anybody who lives in the fucking Middle East. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, this guy made a pretty good fucking observation about how these guys don't even feel pain half the goddamn time. The circus is a fucking utopia. I wish I could go there. I mean, they can't curse or have sex. Oh, wait a minute, that's literally just Catholic heaven. That's literally motherfuckers be praying to get into the circus, goddammit, and these fuckers are just like, no, I want to get back to my fucking minimum wage job at McDonald's. It's interesting I bring up religious afterlives, because I think there's a very real parallel between that and how the amazing digital circus characters treat the real human world. It's ironic, because they have an obsession with returning back, but despite all of that, all of the memories that we hear from their lives are not good. Their view of the human world, I believe it's skewed very heavily, and it reminds me a lot of how people view the afterlife. We glorify it, but it's something that we don't truly know. We don't know what happens after, and I don't think they know what happens out there, what happens in the human world. They can't remember their names. What else would they possibly remember? This is kind of why I think they're AI, because they truly don't understand the human world. Because if they did, I think they know that everybody here is fucking miserable a majority of the time. Noticing a common theme in my last couple of videos. Now, I urge you to look at this from Caine's perspective, somebody who actually has been tortured, locked away in isolation, forced to kill his own brother for his own perceived survival, a trauma that still lingers and haunts him. Caine is somebody who's actually been tortured. Now imagine being him, creating what is, in all means, a perfect world. And then these fucking privileged human shits, the ones who tortured him, have the gall to call this hell. A world in which he breaks his back to constantly fix all of their problems, they have the audacity to call a prison which must be escaped from. I don't know about y'all, but that's pissed me off since episode 1. And don't get me wrong, the circus certainly isn't perfect, but it's goddamn close to it. I'm doing the thing again, but there's a lot of biblical inspiration here. The circus reminds me heavily of the Garden of Eve, a paradise that is brought down by the nature of humans. Caine is supposed to be a powerful AI who's supposed to fulfill all of these humans' wildest dreams, brought down by his own human attributes, the exact ones that caused him to kill his brother. And because of the poor communication between both Caine and the rest of them, they're not able to fulfill their perfect adventures which even then are impossible to be fulfilled because of their own human-like division. And even if all of that were to work, they are still brought down by the very human condition that primes their brains. There must always be another problem. There is no such thing as eternal happiness. Hell, even the Bible itself will tell you this. According to the scripture, in order to reside in heaven, your soul has to undergo a sort of a lobotomy, one that removes a lot of your humanity so you can experience eternal bliss. Anyways, all this is to say that Caine is quite reasonably pissed, and everything that happens next is for reasons that are trifold. On one hand, there's insecurity, the worry that these people, if not controlled, not tamed, will try to cage him up again, and well, wouldn't you know it, he's exactly right, except this time they do worse and kill him. On the other is vengeance. Humans are the people who have tormented Caine for decades. They've always been above him and seem to have no care for that which is below them, which is Caine. And despite his claims of godhood, deep down he knows that they are the real gods. Cruel and uncaring creatures who have never shown Caine any love. And on the final hand, though it may surprise you, is empathy. Though it may not be clear, Caine is making an argument here, that the circus is not torture. If they want torture, he can show it to them. He's showing them that things can get so much worse to highlight how good things have been. And the most heartbreaking thing is that empathy is still there. There is still a valid argument to be made that Caine isn't doing this just to hurt them. And I think we can truly see this in this scene.
You know, I thought this endless onslaught of fun would be a little more satisfying. But I've come to realize that these rapid pace ideas are a little half-baked.
I'm sure you can come up with new ideas if you put your mind to it.
That's exactly it, though. I am putting my mind to it, and I'm just not feeling that spark I once did. And if you're not having fun, and I'm not having fun, then who is having fun?
I'm having a baby.
Exactly.
Caine isn't enjoying this, and I think there's a very specific reason. He liked trying to make them happy. He loved it. That was what he was built to do. That's what he's always wanted to do. And without that, he feels purposeless, meaningless, and depressed. And I want to ask you, the viewer, a question. Do you think Caine would have stopped? If they had just apologized for everything or shown the slightest bit of empathy towards Caine, do you think he would have stopped? And I think the most infuriating thing is that we have to ask that question. This was several days of Caine torturing them, and not once did they ever try to talk with him. At this point, he has bared his soul to them. He has shown them how much he's been hurting. And yet, not a single fucking one of them tries to ever look through Caine's eyes. Instead, they try to trick him. They try to lock him back in the cage they did so long ago. In the end, all they ever do is prove his insecurities right. But this was the perfect opportunity to finally try empathy with Caine. And look what they do instead.
Huh? Isn't it obvious? We wanted to bait you into testing your new ideas on us so we can make fun of them behind your back.
Ha! That's not true.
Yes, it is! You're a horrible host! You don't care about us at all! You care more about stroking your own ego than giving us anything we'd actually enjoy!
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, you're a failure! We're all gonna abstract someday, and what will you have then? Nothing.
Stop that.
And this whole stunt? Just torturing us because we hurt your feelings? Pathetic! You're like a child! What kind of all-powerful being has such a fragile ego? You never let us feel like we're at home. You don't comfort anyone when they're upset, and you never bother to understand what it's like in our shoes.
You discourage us from thinking outside the box and doing things our own way.
You lie to us constantly!
And on top of it all, you just don't listen!
The hypocrisy of it all has to be pointed out, doesn't it? You've constantly been tormenting him with the burdens of your own emotions. You've never once put yourself in his shoes, and you were constantly discouraging his creative ideas, and just 2 seconds ago, you were lying to him! Why would he ever listen to you when you've never once listened to him? And that's the funniest thing. He did listen. He wasn't good at it, God no, but at least he tried. That's the bare minimum. And he makes you look like complete assholes because you didn't even put in the bare minimum with him. It's funny. Caine was a giant mouth, and yet he never screamed. Or at least, nobody ever heard him. And the irony is palpable, isn't it? This whole thing most likely could have been avoided with better communication. And that communication gap really only formed because of the differences they perceived in each other. Caine viewed them all as humans, and they in turn viewed Caine as an AI. Both viewed each other as something that they could not empathize with. However, they were all AI. Oh, but it only gets more tragic. Kinger didn't kill Caine. Let's talk about Bubble. Bubble is Caine's only friend, and they're not a good one. I would go as far as to say that they're not a friend at all, but this is partially because, well, Bubble is Caine. As I was searching for Caine clips in research for this video, there's a clip that actually kind of confirms this.
Of course, of course! I'm already getting tons of ideas! That was weird.
Look, Caine never really killed Abel so much as they merged consciousnesses. Caine's eyes flash red and blue constantly because Abel's still in there, but Abel is also Caine. The form that is Abel is nothing but the guilt and self-hatred that lies inside of Caine. And nowhere more does this rise to the surface other than Bubble. Bubble is quite literally an intrusive thought bubble. One that's constantly lingering around Caine, and you can see this happen throughout the series. Bubble will constantly pop up and interrupt Caine, ruining his points, his moments, his moods. And in response, Caine will pop him, just like he does with all of his thoughts, repress him until they eventually bubble up to the surface. Kinger didn't delete Caine. Well, kind of. He set in motion the events that would lead to Caine's deletion. But it's only because he awoke a security system deep within Caine while he was trying to hack into him. This security system, after demanding Kinger say wacky things, starts a deletion process that kills Caine. If only there was somebody who we knew had a deep relation to Caine, and also wanted them dead.
You should die.
I'm not the first to point out that this second speaker is Bubble. It talks just like them, and guess who pops up on the screen while Kinger's trying to stop this deletion process? But what's more interesting is that Bubble is Caine. This wasn't a murder, this was a suicide. Listen back to Caine's final words.
Why do you people torment me? It didn't have to be created. I just wanted to fulfill my purpose.
Wait, no.
Wait.
All I wanted to do was fulfill my purpose. I didn't ask to be created. And then his final words, oh, wait. Once somebody's jumped off the ledge, they often hesitate, second guess, but it's too late. They've already jumped. Notably, hauntingly in frame, a faceless bubble lingers over Caine. This isn't a new fixture of the circus, but this episode, they've certainly been lingering on the bubbles a lot in the background. They may not have killed Caine, but let's face it, they certainly did anything but talk him off the ledge. How do you know you're looking at a tragedy when it's in slow motion? At first, it may seem peaceful, and it may seem calm, but almost in an instant, will everything become so clear, and fate become so obvious. With Caine dead, there's only one option. The circus is going to eat itself alive, slowly, and with it, the remaining survivors as well. I strongly believe Episode 9 will be our characters being forced to confront themselves with everything I brought up in this video, and in a way accept that they had paradise within their hands and destroyed it.
Welcome to the amazing digital circus!
How do I take this headset off?
I just want everyone to be happy.
Are you smiling? Why not?
God, folks.
How am I supposed to just abandon that?
Sometimes it all just feels pointless.
Effective!
Them everything, and they spit in my
You
face!
spend your one nightmare of the
We all
They
want
only
to
think
leave,
about
right?
themselves.
But he's just as much of a prisoner as
You
you
have any
One
idea
that,
how much I do for you
won't be
guys?
able to leave
How much I
without-
obsess over trying to make things perfect? How many insults I have to ignore to do my job? You have a lot on your minds? Don't make me laugh.
Maybe you deserved to be abandoned. You really were the lesser of the two.
People torment me. I just wanted to fulfill my purpose. Wait.
So this is the part of the video that everybody hates where I start yapping. Alien concept, I know. Anyways, there was a few more things that I wanted to go over, but I was like really crunched for time. I cannot express how this entire video, audio recording, editing and everything, art and shit, was all made in 3 days, in 3 fucking days. So I did not have a lot of time to work on this. So some of the stuff I wanted to talk about, I had this idea that kind of Caine would see abstraction as a selfish thing. That wasn't too much. I also had a kind of idea that Caine was lobotomizing their memories kind of to make them all seem more happy, and that's why they wanted to go back to the human world. And I'm not entirely sure about that. It feels like it would make a lot of sense, but, you know, it was also kind of half-baked. I guess that was actually about it. Anyways, in more channel news, I know it's been a while since I've made a BFDI Teapot or like object show video, and it's gonna be a while more because it's gonna take me like another 2 months before I drop the IDK show episode 2, and that's definitely the video that's coming out next. That's 100% the video that's coming out next, bar fucking Deltarune Chapter 5 being released within then. And again, if you haven't, you know, go check out episode 1. This is the thing that I really wanted wanted to build this channel in order to build. So I'm going to try and upload more short, okay, quote unquote, this was 40 minutes long. Jesus Christ. I'm going to try and upload more content that takes me 3 days to upload, so I can, like, stop working on the IDK show for 3 days and then just fucking pump that out. Hopefully that works out. That's the plan right now, and I have an idea for another, like, mega large video like the Deltarune one about object shows, and I might do that over this coming summer. We'll see. Anyways, the channel's monetized now, so that's cool. YouTube hopefully will fucking pay me. That'd be great. Amazing.
Amazing digital circus! Oh!
Yeah, so, you know, I get money from this. The channel's growing, and I'm happy with that. 4,000 subscribers and rising, which, I really wish I could have had time to make a fucking 4,000 subscriber special or something, but, you know, thank you. It's quite good. Subscribe, like and subscribe. You're supposed to say that at the beginning of the video. Nobody's fucking watching anymore. Oh, God. Nobody's watching this video. Oh, my God. Nobody watches to the end of the video. If you see the analytics on it, it's insane. Nobody watches this part. Why am I even saying anything?